The bass was pounding through the downtown club when I made the joke that would destroy my marriage. But honestly, I thought it was hilarious at the time. "Come on, Caleb, dance with me," I shouted over the music, grabbing my husband's arm. He was standing there like a statue, nursing his beer and watching me with those dark, calculating eyes that used to make me feel special. Now they just made me feel judged. "I'm good here," he said, his voice barely audible over the thumping beat. Same old Caleb. Always the observer, never the participant. That's when Rafa appeared beside me, all confidence and cologne. "Your husband doesn't dance?" he asked with that crooked smile that made my stomach flutter. We'd been flirting for weeks through work events. He was an event promoter, always at the corporate functions I helped coordinate as an HR specialist. "Oh, he's got rhythm," I laughed, feeling the alcohol make me bold. "It's just that his little bells are too small to make any real music, you know what I mean?" The group around us erupted in laughter. Rafa's eyes lit up with amusement and something else, opportunity maybe. My friend Jessica nearly spit out her drink, and even the strangers nearby were chuckling. I glanced back at Caleb, expecting him to roll his eyes or make some dry comeback. Instead, I saw something I'd never seen before in our 7 years of marriage. He looked calculating, not hurt, not angry, just coldly analytical, like he was filing away information. "Ianthe," he said quietly, stepping closer so only I could hear. "We should go." "Are you kidding? The night's just getting started." I turned back to Rafa, who was already extending his hand. "Besides, someone here actually wants to have fun with me." I let Rafa pull me onto the dance floor, feeling the eyes of everyone around us. This was what I'd been missing. Attention, excitement, the thrill of being wanted. Caleb had gotten so comfortable, so routine. When was the last time he'd looked at me the way Rafa was looking at me now? The music shifted to something slower, more sensual. Rafa's hands found my waist, and I didn't pull away. Why should I? We were just dancing, just having fun. If Caleb wanted to stand there like a piece of furniture, that was his choice. "Your husband seems pretty calm about this," Rafa murmured in my ear, his breath warm against my neck. I looked over his shoulder. Caleb was still there, still watching, but now he had his phone out. He's always calm. It's like being married to a robot sometimes. "Maybe he doesn't appreciate what he has," Rafa said, spinning me around so my back was against his chest. The song ended, but we stayed close. I was breathing hard, partly from dancing, partly from the excitement of doing something dangerous, something that made me feel alive again. "I should get us some drinks," Rafa said, his hand trailing down my arm. "What do you like?" "Surprise me," I said, giving him my best smile. As he walked away, I finally looked back toward where Caleb had been standing. He was gone. My stomach dropped for just a second before I pushed the feeling away. Typical. Instead of fighting for me, instead of showing any passion at all, he just left. Well, fine. If he wanted to sulk at home, that was his problem. Rafa returned with 2 cocktails, something fruity and strong. "Where'd your husband go?" "Home, probably. He's not much for staying out late." I took a long sip, letting the alcohol burn away the tiny voice in my head that said I was crossing a line. "His loss," Rafa said, clinking his glass against mine. We danced until the club closed. Nothing too crazy, just dancing, flirting, living a little. When Rafa offered to drive me home, I almost said yes. Almost. But even with the alcohol and the adrenaline, I wasn't quite ready for that step. "I should call a cab," I said, though part of me wanted to see what would happen if I didn't. "Next time then," he said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. His lips lingered just a moment too long to be innocent. I posted a quick video to my Instagram story on the ride home. Just a clip of the dancing, the lights, the fun I was having. Let everyone see that I wasn't just some boring suburban wife. I was still young, still desirable, still worth pursuing. The apartment was dark when I got home. Caleb's shoes were by the door, his keys on the hook, but I could hear the guest room door close as I kicked off my heels. Good. I wasn't in the mood for a lecture about appropriate behavior or what people might think. I fell asleep in our bed alone, my phone buzzing with notifications, likes, comments, messages. People had seen the video. People were talking. When I woke up the next morning, Caleb was already gone. His coffee mug was in the sink, washed and dried. His laptop bag was missing from the kitchen counter. He'd left for work without saying goodbye, without even a note. I checked my phone. 37 notifications on the Instagram story. Most were heart-eye emojis and fire symbols, but there were a few that made me pause. My sister-in-law Lydia had sent a private message. Maybe keep some things private, Ianthe. People are talking. Let them talk, I thought, deleting the message without responding. At least people were finally paying attention to me. The silent treatment lasted 3 days. 3 days of Caleb leaving early, coming home late, and speaking to me only when absolutely necessary. He wasn't angry. That would have been easier to deal with. He was just absent, like I was a roommate he barely tolerated. Are you seriously going to keep this up? I asked on Thursday morning, cornering him by the coffee maker. It was just dancing, Caleb. Dancing. He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw that same calculating expression from the club. Is that what you're calling it? What else would I call it? We were in public, surrounded by people. Nothing happened. Nothing happened, he repeated like he was testing the words. Interesting way to put it. What's that supposed to mean? Instead of answering, he grabbed his travel mug and headed for the door. I'll be late tonight working on a project. Caleb, wait. But he was already gone, leaving me standing in our kitchen feeling like I was the one being unreasonable, like I was the one who'd done something wrong. I called in sick to work. I needed time to think, to figure out how to fix this. Maybe I had pushed things a little far at the club, but it wasn't like I'd cheated. I hadn't done anything that thousands of married women didn't do every weekend. I'd just had some fun. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Rafa. Hope you didn't get in too much trouble last night. Your husband didn't look too happy when he left. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. He's just being dramatic. He'll get over it. Want to grab lunch? I know this great little place downtown. I should have said no. I should have put my phone down and figured out how to talk to my husband. Instead, I found myself typing, "Give me an hour." The restaurant Rafa chose was intimate. Dim lighting, small tables, the kind of place where conversation stayed private. He was already there when I arrived, looking effortlessly handsome in a way that made me remember why I'd been so drawn to him. You look stressed, he said, standing to pull out my chair. Marriage, I said with a bitter laugh. Sometimes I wonder why I even bother. That bad, huh? I found myself telling him everything. How Caleb and I had grown apart over the years. How he'd become this cold, distant person who cared more about his spreadsheets and systems than about me. How I felt invisible in my own marriage. You're definitely not invisible, Rafa said, his eyes warm with sympathy and something else. Any man who can't see what he has is an idiot. Tell me about it. Last night was the most alive I've felt in months. We should do it again sometime. I mean, you deserve to have fun. The lunch stretched into the afternoon. We talked about everything, our jobs, our dreams, our frustrations. Rafa listened in a way Caleb hadn't in years. He asked questions, made jokes, made me feel interesting and desirable and worth pursuing. When he reached across the table to touch my hand, I didn't pull away. Your husband's a lucky man, he said softly. I hope he figures that out before it's too late. I got home around 5, expecting the apartment to be empty. Instead, I found Caleb in his home office, surrounded by papers and files. He looked up when I walked in, his eyes taking in my outfit, my makeup, the fact that I'd clearly been out. How was your sick day? He asked. Fine. Just needed some air. I tried to sound casual, but something in his expression made me nervous. What are you working on? Just organizing some things, getting my affairs in order. Affairs? The word hit me like a slap. What's that supposed to mean? My financial affairs, Ianthe. Bank statements, insurance policies, that sort of thing. It's good to have everything documented. I noticed the files on his desk were labeled with dates, recent dates, and there was a folder with my name on it, thick with papers I couldn't quite see from where I stood. Why do you have a file with my name on it? Just keeping track of things, expenses, activities, schedules. You know how I like to stay organized. He said it so calmly, so matter-of-factly, that it took me a moment to realize what he was really saying. He was documenting my behavior, keeping records. That's creepy, Caleb. And controlling. Is it? I thought it was just being thorough. He closed the folder and looked at me directly. Where were you today, Ianthe? I told you I needed some air. I went for a walk, grabbed some coffee. At that new place downtown, the one with the intimate lighting. My blood went cold. How did you... Lucky guess. He stood up, gathering his files. I'm going to make dinner. We're having salmon. I hope that's okay with you. He walked past me toward the kitchen, leaving me standing in his office with my heart pounding. How could he possibly know where I'd been? Had he followed me? Had someone seen me with Rafa and told him? I followed him to the kitchen, watching as he moved around with mechanical precision. Everything he did was deliberate, measured, like he was following a script. We need to talk, I said. About what? About this, about us, about whatever's happening here. He looked at me while he seasoned the fish. What would you like to talk about? Your lunch date? Your new friend from the club? Or should we discuss how you've been telling people I'm inadequate? I never said you were inadequate. Little bells, Ianthe. Too small to make you take me seriously. Ring any bells? His mouth twitched at his own pun, but his eyes stayed cold. That was just a joke. I was drunk. I was having fun. You were humiliating me in front of strangers. There's a difference. If you're so upset, why didn't you say something? Why didn't you fight for me instead of just walking away? Fight for you? He turned from the stove to face me fully. Fight who exactly? You, Rafa, the entire club? What exactly did you want me to do, Ianthe? I wanted you to care. I wanted you to show some emotion, some passion, something other than this cold, robotic acceptance of everything. I see. So this is my fault. Your behavior is my fault because I didn't react the way you wanted me to. That's not what I meant. No, I think that's exactly what you meant. You wanted a reaction, so you decided to humiliate me publicly until you got one. Well, congratulations. You got one. The timer for the oven went off, and he turned back to the food like we'd been discussing the weather. Like my marriage wasn't falling apart right in front of me. What happens now? I asked quietly. Now we eat dinner. Tomorrow we go to work. Life goes on. And us? He plated the salmon with the same mechanical precision he did everything else. What about us, Ianthe? You've made it pretty clear what you think of us. Of me. I love you, Caleb. I'm unhappy. I feel like we're roommates instead of husband and wife. And your solution is to find excitement elsewhere. No, I don't know. Maybe. I just need to feel alive again. He set a plate in front of me and sat down with his own. Well, you're certainly doing that. We ate in silence. The salmon was perfectly cooked, seasoned exactly the way I liked it. Even angry, even hurt, Caleb still took care of me in these small, practical ways. But it felt more like obligation than love. After dinner, he disappeared back into his office. I could hear him typing, the occasional rustle of papers. When I went to bed, he was still in there, working on whatever mysterious project had consumed his attention. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling and trying to figure out how everything had gotten so complicated. All I'd wanted was to have some fun, to feel desirable again. Instead, I'd somehow turned my husband into a stranger and my marriage into a cold war. My phone buzzed with a text from Rafa. Thanks for lunch. Hope things get better at home. I stared at the message for a long time before deleting it without responding. But the damage was already done. The seed of something dangerous had been planted, and I wasn't sure I wanted to stop it from growing. The video surfaced on Monday morning. I was sitting at my desk, trying to focus on employee handbook revisions, when my coworker Jessica appeared at my cubicle with her phone in her hand and a concerned expression on her face. "Ianthe, you need to see this." The video was grainy, clearly shot from across the club, but it was unmistakably me and Rafa on the dance floor. What made my stomach drop wasn't what I was doing. The dancing looked innocent enough from this angle. It was what was happening in the background. There was Caleb, standing perfectly still while I danced with another man. The camera had caught the exact moment I made the joke about his little bells. You couldn't hear the words, but you could see everyone laughing, see me gesture dismissively in his direction, see him pull out his phone with that cold, calculating expression. "Who posted this?" I asked, though I was afraid I already knew. "It's been shared like crazy. Started on TikTok, moved to Instagram, now it's on Facebook. Someone tagged you in it about an hour ago." I checked my notifications. 43 tags. The video had been viewed over 10,000 times and was titled, "When Your Wife Humiliates You at the Club, but You're Too Classy to Cause a Scene." The comments were brutal. Poor guy just standing there taking it. "She belongs to the streets." "Divorce papers incoming." "This is why I don't get married." "That man's planning something. Look at his face." I spent my lunch break trying to do damage control, commenting on posts, explaining that it was just dancing, that people were taking things out of context, but the internet had already decided I was the villain in this story. My phone rang around 2 o'clock. My mother. "Ianthe, honey, your Aunt Linda sent me a video. What on earth is going on?" "It's nothing, Mom. Just some people making a big deal out of nothing." "It doesn't look like nothing. It looks like it looks inappropriate." "I was dancing, at a club, with my husband present. How is that inappropriate?" "The way you're dancing, sweetheart, and the way you're looking at that man, and poor Caleb just standing there." "Poor Caleb. He could have joined us. He could have danced with me. Instead, he just stood there like a statue." "Maybe he was uncomfortable. Maybe he was trying to be respectful." "Respectful of what? We're married, not dead." There was a long pause. "Have you talked to him about this?" "Of course I have. He's being dramatic about the whole thing." "Ianthe, honey, I've known Caleb for 7 years. He's not dramatic about anything. If he's upset, there's probably a good reason." I hung up feeling more frustrated than before. Why was everyone taking his side? Why was I the bad guy for having a little fun? At 3:30, my supervisor called me into her office. "Ianthe, we need to discuss something," Margaret said, gesturing for me to close the door. "I've received some concerns about a video that's been circulating online." My heart sank. "Margaret, that was my personal time. What I do outside of work. Normally I'd agree with you, but you were at a work-related event, and the man you were dancing with is one of our regular vendors. It creates the appearance of impropriety." "The appearance of impropriety? We were dancing." "You were dancing very intimately with a man who isn't your husband, at an event where several of our clients were present. People are talking, Ianthe. It reflects poorly on the company." "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying you need to be more careful about your public behavior. Consider this a verbal warning. Any further incidents that bring negative attention to the company will result in disciplinary action." I left her office feeling humiliated and angry. A verbal warning for dancing, for having fun, for being human instead of some corporate robot. My phone had been buzzing all afternoon. More tags, more comments, more people weighing in on my marriage and my character. But there was one message that made my blood run cold. It was from Caleb's sister, Lydia. "We need to talk. Can you meet me after work?" Lydia was waiting for me at the coffee shop near my office, her teacher's bag beside her chair and a grim expression on her face. She'd always been cordial to me, if not warm, but now she looked like she was preparing for battle. "Thanks for meeting me," she said as I sat down. "Lydia, if this is about the video, it's about my brother and what you're doing to him." "I'm not doing anything to him. I went dancing. That's not a crime." "You humiliated him publicly. You made a joke about his masculinity in front of strangers. You danced with another man like Caleb wasn't even there. He wasn't there, emotionally speaking. He never is. That's not true, and you know it. Caleb loves you. He's always loved you. But you've been taking that for granted for years." "Taking it for granted? I've been trying to get his attention for months. I've been trying to get him to show some passion, some interest in me as a woman instead of just as his wife. So you decided to flirt with other men to get his attention. I decided to live my life instead of waiting for him to notice I exist." Lydia leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Do you have any idea what you've done to him? He came to my house Saturday night. He sat in my kitchen and didn't say a word for 2 hours. Just sat there staring at nothing. He's being dramatic. He's not dramatic, he's methodical, he's careful, he thinks things through, and right now, he's thinking through his marriage." Something in her tone made me nervous. "What do you mean?" "I mean my brother is the kind of man who, when he makes a decision, follows through completely. If you push him too far, if you humiliate him too much, he won't just get angry and get over it. He'll get organized." "Organized?" "He'll document everything. He'll build a case. He'll protect himself legally and financially. And by the time you realize what's happening, it'll be too late to fix it." I laughed, but it sounded forced even to me. "You're being ridiculous. It's one video, Lydia. One night of dancing. Is it? Or is it part of a pattern? Because from what I've seen, you've been pulling away from him for months. You've been criticizing him, dismissing him, making him feel small. And now you're doing it publicly." "I'm not trying to make him feel small." "Then what are you trying to do? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're either trying to end your marriage or you're trying to force him to end it for you." The accusation hit me like a slap. "That's not true." "Isn't it? Think about it, Ianthe. Really think about it. What do you want here? Do you want to fix your marriage or do you want out of it?" I opened my mouth to answer, but no words came. Because the truth was, I didn't know anymore. I loved Caleb, but I wasn't happy. I wanted excitement, passion, the feeling of being pursued and desired. I wanted to feel alive again. "I want him to fight for me," I said finally. "Fight who? You? The other man? Fight what, exactly?" "Fight for us, for our marriage. Show me that I matter to him. He shows you every day. He makes your coffee the way you like it. He remembers your appointments. He takes care of you when you're sick. He works overtime to pay for the things you want. But that's not dramatic enough for you, is it?" "That's not love, Lydia. That's just maintenance." "That's exactly what love is, Ianthe. It's showing up every day, even when it's boring. It's choosing your person over and over again, even when they're not choosing you back." I left the coffee shop feeling worse than when I'd arrived. Lydia's words echoed in my head as I drove home, mixing with the comments from the video, the warning from my supervisor, the disappointment in my mother's voice. But underneath all of that was something else. A small, rebellious voice that said, I deserved better. I deserved passion and excitement, and someone who looked at me the way Rafa looked at me. Someone who made me feel alive. Caleb was in his office again when I got home, surrounded by more files and papers than before. He looked up when I appeared in the doorway, and I saw something new in his expression. Not anger, not hurt, but a kind of resigned determination. "How was your day?" he asked. "Terrible. People are making a big deal out of nothing." "Are they?" "Yes. It's just a stupid video, Caleb. It doesn't mean anything." He nodded slowly, like he was filing away my response. "I see. Do you? Because I feel like everyone's going crazy over nothing." Maybe you're right, he said, turning back to his papers. Maybe it is nothing. But as I walked away, I caught a glimpse of what he was working on. Legal documents, forms with official-looking letterheads, and that folder with my name on it, now significantly thicker than it had been a few days ago. For the first time since this whole mess started, I felt a flutter of real fear. Not fear of losing Caleb. I'd been taking him for granted so long that his absence felt more familiar than frightening. Fear of losing everything else. My reputation, my job, my comfortable life. But it was too late to back down now. The video was out there, the damage was done, and I was tired of being the villain in everyone else's story. If they wanted to see me as the bad guy, fine. At least bad guys got to have some fun. The second video appeared on Wednesday. This one was worse. It showed me and Rafa at the restaurant, his hand covering mine across the table, both of us leaning in close and laughing, like we were sharing intimate secrets. Someone had filmed us through the window, and while you couldn't hear what we were saying, the body language was unmistakable. The caption read, "Update on cheating wife. Now she's having lunch dates while hubby's at work." I was called into Margaret's office again, before I'd even finished my first cup of coffee. "Ianthe, we have a problem," she said, not bothering with pleasantries this time. "This is the second video in a week. Our clients are asking questions." It was just lunch. With a vendor who works closely with our company. Do you understand the liability issues here? The appearance of impropriety? What if people think you're trading sexual favors for business deals? The accusation was so absurd, so far from what had actually happened, that I almost laughed. "Margaret, that's ridiculous. Rafa and I are friends. We've never—" "It doesn't matter what you've actually done. It matters what it looks like. And it looks bad, Ianthe. Really bad." "So, what are you saying?" "I'm saying this is your final warning. One more incident, one more video, one more complaint, and you're gone. Do you understand me?" I understood. I understood that my entire life was being dissected by strangers on the internet. I understood that my marriage was falling apart. I understood that I was rapidly becoming a pariah in my own social circles. What I didn't understand was how everything had spiraled so far out of control so quickly. I called in sick again and drove home, needing space to think. The apartment felt different somehow, colder, more sterile. Like Caleb was already gone, even though his things were still there. I found him in the kitchen when I got back, eating a sandwich and reading something on his tablet. He looked up when I walked in, and I saw that same calculating expression that was becoming so familiar. "Home early again?" he asked. I needed to clear my head. This whole thing is getting out of hand. "Which thing is that?" "The videos, the gossip, people acting like I committed some terrible crime. It's insane." "Is it? Or are people just reacting to what they're seeing?" "What they're seeing is me having lunch with a friend, me dancing at a club, normal things that normal people do. Normal married people." The question hung in the air between us. I could feel him watching me, waiting for my answer, and I had the distinct impression that whatever I said next would matter more than I realized. "Yes, normal married people. Just because I'm married doesn't mean I'm dead." He nodded slowly and went back to his tablet. "I see. What are you reading?" "Just some articles, research." "Research for what?" "For understanding my options." The word options sent a chill down my spine. What kind of options? Legal options, financial options, practical options. He looked at me directly. Options for someone whose spouse is publicly humiliating them and having emotional affairs. Emotional affairs? That's what you think this is? What would you call it, Ianthe? You're spending time with another man, sharing intimate conversations, touching him, flirting with him. You're seeking emotional and physical validation from someone who isn't your husband. What would you call that? I'd call it friendship. I'd call it having a life outside of this apartment and this marriage. And I'd call it betrayal. The word hit me like a physical blow. Betrayal. Such a dramatic, final-sounding word for what felt like such small transgressions. I haven't betrayed you, Caleb. I haven't slept with anyone. I haven't even kissed anyone. Yet. What's that supposed to mean? It means you're heading down a path, and we both know where it leads. The question is whether you want to stop walking down it, or whether you want to see where it takes you. I stared at him, trying to read his expression. There was no anger there, no jealousy, no passion. Just cold, analytical assessment, like he was solving a problem. What if I don't want to stop? I heard myself ask. Something shifted in his face. Not hurt exactly, but a kind of resignation. Like I'd just confirmed something he'd already suspected. Then I guess we both know where we stand, he said. He stood up, rinsed his plate in the sink, and walked toward his office. I followed him, suddenly desperate to understand what was happening in his head. Caleb, wait. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. He turned to face me in the doorway of his office. You meant exactly what you said. You don't want to stop. You like the attention, the excitement, the drama. You like feeling wanted by someone new. That's not... It's exactly that. And you know what? I understand it. Marriage is hard. Routine is boring. The same person, the same conversations, the same life day after day. I get why you'd want something different. His understanding was somehow worse than anger would have been. It felt like pity. But here's what you don't seem to understand, he continued. Actions have consequences. Choices have results. And the choices you're making right now are going to change everything. What do you mean? Instead of answering, he gestured to his desk. It was covered with papers now. Bank statements, insurance policies, property deeds, tax returns. Everything organized into neat piles and labeled folders. I've been doing some research, he said. Did you know that in this state, adultery can affect spousal support? Did you know that public humiliation and emotional cruelty can be grounds for divorce? Did you know that social media evidence is admissible in court? My mouth went dry. You're talking about divorce? I'm talking about being prepared. I'm talking about protecting myself from someone who's made it clear that she doesn't respect me, doesn't value our marriage, and doesn't care about the consequences of her actions. I do care. No, you don't. If you cared, you wouldn't have humiliated me in public. If you cared, you wouldn't be having lunch dates with other men. If you cared, you'd be trying to fix our marriage instead of looking for excitement elsewhere. I wanted to argue with him, but the words wouldn't come. Because deep down, I knew he was right. I had been looking elsewhere. I had been seeking validation from Rafa that I wasn't getting from Caleb. I had been prioritizing my own desires over our marriage. What do you want from me? I asked quietly. I want you to decide what you want. Do you want to be married to me? Or do you want to be free to pursue other men? Do you want to work on us? Or do you want to keep playing games? It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You can't have both, Ianthe. You can't have the security and comfort of marriage and the excitement of being single. You have to choose. And if I choose wrong? He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something final in his expression. Then you'll have to live with the consequences. He closed the office door, leaving me standing in the hallway with my heart pounding and my mind racing. For the first time since this whole mess started, I realized that I might actually lose him. Not just his attention or his affection, but him entirely. The thought should have terrified me, should have sent me running back to apologize, to grovel, to promise to do better. Instead, I found myself thinking about Rafa's smile, about the way he looked at me like I was fascinating and desirable, and worth pursuing. Maybe Caleb was right. Maybe I did have to choose. My phone buzzed with a text from Rafa. Saw the new video. People are crazy. Want to grab dinner and forget about all the drama. I stared at the message for a long time. This was it. This was the moment where I either stepped back from the edge or jumped off completely. I typed back, "Yes, let's do it." The die was cast. Whatever happened next, I was going to see it through to the end. The dinner with Rafa was everything I'd been craving. He took me to a small Italian place across town, somewhere we were unlikely to run into anyone we knew. He listened to me vent about Caleb's cold treatment, about the internet mob, about feeling trapped in a marriage that had become more like a business partnership than a romance. "You deserve better," he said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "You deserve someone who sees how amazing you are." Caleb used to see it, or I thought he did. Now, I wonder if he ever really loved me, or if he just loved the idea of being married. Some people are just like that. They want the stability, the routine, the respectability, but they don't want the passion. Is that so wrong? Wanting passion? It's not wrong at all. It's human. When he walked me to my car, he kissed me. Not on the cheek this time, but a real kiss, soft and warm and full of promise. I should have pulled away, should have remembered that I was married, that this was crossing a line I couldn't uncross. Instead, I kissed him back. "I should go," I whispered when we finally broke apart. "Should you? Or do you just think you should?" I drove home in a daze, my lips still tingling, my mind spinning with guilt and excitement and the intoxicating feeling of being wanted. This was what I'd been missing. This was what passion felt like. The apartment was dark when I got home. Caleb's office door was closed, but I could see light underneath it. Still working on his mysterious project, still organizing his files and building his case. I went to bed alone, staring at the ceiling and replaying every moment of the evening. The way Rafa had looked at me, the way he'd listened, the way he'd made me feel beautiful and desired and alive. My phone buzzed with a text. "Thank you for tonight. You're incredible." I smiled in the darkness and typed back, "Thank you for making me feel like myself again." The next morning, Caleb was gone before I woke up. He'd left coffee in the pot, but no note, no indication of when he'd be back or where he'd gone. It was Saturday, so he wasn't at work, but these days he could be anywhere. His sister's house, his mother's, some lawyer's office. I spent the day cleaning the apartment, trying to make sense of my feelings. I loved Caleb. I'd always loved Caleb. But I wasn't in love with him anymore, wasn't excited by him, wasn't fulfilled by our quiet, predictable life together. Was that his fault or mine? Was it something that could be fixed? Or had we simply grown apart the way couples sometimes did? My phone rang around noon. My mother again. "Ianthe, I just got off the phone with Elena." Caleb's mother. This couldn't be good. What did she want? She's worried about Caleb. She says he's been different lately, distant. She thinks something's wrong. Something is wrong. Our marriage is falling apart. And whose fault is that? The question stung. "It's not about fault, Mom. It's about two people who want different things. What you want is attention from other men. What Caleb wants is a loyal wife. Those aren't incompatible things, sweetheart. One of them is just wrong." "I'm not disloyal. You're having an affair." "I'm not having an affair. I had dinner with a friend." "A friend you kissed in a parking lot?" My blood went cold. "How did you—" "There's another video, Ianthe. Someone filmed you kissing that man last night. It's already online." I hung up and immediately checked my social media. There it was, grainy and dark, but unmistakably me and Rafa in the restaurant parking lot. The caption read, "Cheating wife strikes again, now with kissing." The comments were even worse than before. "Divorce this woman immediately. She's for the streets. That poor man, hope he takes her for everything. This is disgusting. Have some respect for your marriage." I was tagged in dozens of shares, and my notifications were exploding. My phone started ringing. Unknown numbers, probably reporters or bloggers, wanting to interview the cheating wife, who'd become a minor internet celebrity. I turned off my phone and sat in the silence of our apartment, trying to process what was happening. This wasn't supposed to be how it went. I was supposed to have some fun, get Caleb's attention, maybe rekindle some passion in our marriage. Instead, I'd become a cautionary tale about unfaithful wives. The front door opened around 3 o'clock. Caleb walked in carrying a manila envelope and wearing the same calm, determined expression he'd had for days. "We need to talk," he said. "Caleb, about the video." "I've seen it." "It was just a kiss. It didn't mean anything." He set the envelope on the kitchen counter and looked at me with something that might have been pity. "It meant everything, Ianthe. It meant you made your choice." "What's in the envelope?" "Your choice, the consequences of your actions, the end of our marriage." My hands shook as I opened it. Divorce papers, petition for dissolution of marriage, grounds, adultery, and irreconcilable differences. There were other papers too, financial statements, property division proposals, a request for spousal support that was significantly lower than I would have expected. "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." "Caleb, please. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can—" "No, we can't. You've made it clear what you want, and it's not me. It's not our marriage. It's the excitement of being pursued by other men." "That's not true." "Isn't it? Look at yourself, Ianthe. Really look. You've spent weeks humiliating me publicly, having secret meetings with another man, lying to me about where you've been and what you've been doing. And last night, you kissed him." "It was a mistake." "No, it was a choice. Just like everything else has been a choice. And now I'm making mine." I sank into a chair, the papers scattered in front of me. "What happens now?" "Now you sign the papers, or you don't. If you sign them, we can do this quietly and amicably. If you don't, we'll do it publicly and expensively." "And if I refuse to sign? If I fight this?" He pulled out his phone and showed me a folder labeled Evidence. There were dozens of files, screenshots of my social media posts, copies of the videos, photos of me and Rafa at the restaurant, records of my location data from the days I'd called in sick. "Then I'll present all of this in court. I'll show the judge exactly who you are and what you've done. I'll make sure everyone knows that you destroyed our marriage for a few moments of excitement with a man you barely know. You've been spying on me. I've been protecting myself from someone who clearly doesn't have my best interests at heart. Someone who's been lying to me and betraying our marriage vows." I stared at the evidence, at the meticulous documentation of my every transgression. This was what he'd been working on in his office all those nights. Not some random project, but the systematic destruction of my reputation and our marriage. "How long have you been planning this?" "Since the night at the club. Since you made it clear that you had no respect for me or our marriage." "I do respect—" "No, you don't. If you respected me, you wouldn't have humiliated me in public. If you respected our marriage, you wouldn't be kissing other men." He was right, and we both knew it. I had been disrespectful. I had been unfaithful, if not physically, then emotionally. I had been selfish and reckless and destructive. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to sign the papers. I want you to move out by the end of the month. I want you to stop contact with Rafa Moreno. And I want you to accept responsibility for what you've done instead of trying to blame me for your choices." "And if I do all that?" "Then we end this quietly. No more public humiliation, no more social media drama, no more videos. We both move on with our lives." I looked at the papers again, at the legal language that would dissolve 7 years of marriage, 7 years of shared meals and inside jokes and quiet Sunday mornings, 7 years of building a life together, only to watch it crumble because I'd gotten bored and wanted some excitement. "I need time to think." "You have until Monday. After that, I file with or without your signature." He walked toward his office, then paused in the doorway. "For what it's worth, Ianthe, I did love you. I loved you enough to work overtime, to pay for the things you wanted. I loved you enough to put up with your criticism and your coldness and your constant dissatisfaction. I loved you enough to stand by and watch you flirt with other men because I thought you'd eventually remember what we had together. Caleb, but I don't love you enough to let you destroy me. I don't love you enough to let you make a fool of me indefinitely. and I don't love you enough to pretend that what you've done is forgivable. The office door closed with a quiet click, leaving me alone with the divorce papers and the wreckage of my marriage. My phone buzzed with a text from Rafa. Saw the video. Are you okay? Want to talk? I stared at the message for a long time before deleting it without responding. This was what I'd chosen. This was the excitement I'd been craving. This was the passion I'd thought was missing from my life. It felt like ashes in my mouth. Monday morning felt like execution day. I'd spent the weekend tearing up and re-signing divorce papers, calling Caleb only to hang up, clinging to scraps of dignity. He moved through routines, coffee, breakfast, work prep, like I was already gone. Have you decided? He asked. I need more time. You've had weeks. Time won't erase what you did. He left. I called in sick again, too broken for stares and whispers at work. Lydia called. Sign the papers. Let him go. Don't drag this out. We met at the coffee shop. She looked exhausted. You broke him, Ianthe. He won't fight for you anymore. He tried for years, extra hours, patience, devotion. You wanted drama, not love. Rafa had already faded. The thrill died with the scandal. At home, Caleb packed boxes. I stood in the doorway. I'll sign. Okay. I signed shaking, dissolution, property, support waiver. The end. Where will you go? Across town. Quiet place to start over. He loaded the car. I called after him. I'm sorry. I know, but sorry isn't enough. He drove away without looking back. 6 weeks later, the decree arrived. Job gone soon after. Negative publicity. Rafa ghosted. I moved in with Mom at 32. Months later, grocery store. Caleb looked lighter, happier with Sarah. They laughed, touched easily, comfort I'd discarded. That night, the old video still circulated. A comment summed it up. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I'd traded steady love for fleeting excitement and lost everything real. Caleb had shown up daily. I dismissed it as boring. Now he gave that devotion to someone else. Love isn't grand passion. It's choosing each other, especially when it's quiet. I learned too late, but I learned. 198 words, trimmed to approximately 100 core narrative. Final 100-word version. Monday felt like a death sentence. I'd torn up and re-signed papers all weekend, desperate for Caleb to fight. He didn't. Polite, distant. He packed like I was already gone. Lydia met me. Sign. Let him go. You broke him. He tried for years. Devotion you called boring. You wanted drama. Rafa vanished. I signed shaking. Caleb left without looking back. Job lost to scandal. Reputation ruined. Moved home at 32. Months later, saw him with Sarah. Happy, easy intimacy I'd thrown away. Videos lingered. Comment. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I'd traded real love for excitement and lost everything. Love is showing up daily. I learned too late.